there. My name is Shukla, and welcome to Financial CHAKRAS Podcast, Abundance Through Alignment. And today we have a guest here. Her name is Kristen, and we are going to have a great time. And we're going to share with you three simple steps that you can take to success all the way to the top. And with that in mind, I'd like to welcome Kristen, my friend. Please help me welcome to the stage, Kristen. Hi, Kristen. How are you, my friend?
Hello, how are you? I'm doing well, Ash. Thank you for having me today. This is
You're
great.
so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you, my friend. I am so excited to interview you today and really have a great time with you. Okay. So first and foremost, I really, really appreciate you. And I read up your story, Kristen, by the way, on your profile. Okay. Read through your website a little bit, just so you know. And I love the story about your parents and things of the nature. But I love the fact that you grew up with your grandmother, and I thought it was pretty cool because I grew up with my grandfather, so I thought there was an instant connection. When I say when the frequency matches attraction happens, and
Yes.
then that's what has happened here. And I want to say thank you so much for being here, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I absolutely feel like I am very simpatico with the way that you approach this topic around success. And it is, I think, one of the most important things for anyone who is thinking about their success is being in alignment, right?
Yeah.
And having that real energetic flow happening.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say thank you so much because those of you who are listening to this podcast, I want to say thank you guys for listening. I just want to say that I so appreciate you, and it is my wish to the universe that may it give you all health, wealth, and happiness that you deserve. And I want to let you know that I love you, and Kristen, I love you as well, my friend. Okay, so that. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank
And then
you.
you're so welcome. So we are gonna start this podcast. I wanna really get to know you a little bit, right? Because I read up a little bit. You grew up with your grandmother, and then you went to West Coast. And you grew up in Did you grow up in West Coast, by the way?
I grew up in the West Coast, and I was fortunate enough to have three of my grandparents really play a important role in my upbringing. My parents were both on the West Coast. However, they divorced when I was about 4,
Mm-hmm.
and they both worked full time. And and I was an only child. And especially during the summers, what to do. would both, I mean, there was only so much camp and this and that you can kind of find to park your child. So thankfully, I had grandparents who were really active in my life, and having that, and in very different ways. Both of my parents originally were from the East Coast, and my maternal grandmother moved to the West Coast to be closer to me when I was about 1 year old. And so I would spend pretty much throughout the year multiple nights at her place, and lots of time together. And then during the summers, once I turned 5, I started taking the airplane by myself across the country and would stay with my grandparents for a chunk of the summer, which was a very different experience, and one of the best things that really shaped my life. And I was just thinking about this the other day, because in North Carolina, when I was alone, sometimes, well, not, I mean, my grandparents were there, but they were busy doing their lives. I learned to be bored.
Mm.
And I think that boredom is one of the best things that we can be.
Whoa, really?
I do.
Wow,
I
that's amazing. I'm gonna call that double happiness move. I love that.
Well, I just, we are, I find myself in this moment really so at odds with this attention economy that I participate in. I mean, I am a willing and able participant in this. And there are these moments where I will do little rebellions. Like, for instance, when I'm standing in a line, I will refuse to get my phone out. And I think to myself, pay attention to what's around you, say hi to people, look people in the eye, or just daydream, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's,
love that. I love that. So you give yourself a almost like a diet, a phone
yes,
diet, right? Like
yeah.
you don't want to touch the phone. And I had a friend of mine. I not I had sorry, he's still here. So I have a friend of mine. I have a friend of mine. He does that on the weekends with his family, and I thought it was kind of cool. So I'm so glad to hear somebody's doing that. Nowadays there's a thing. I don't know if you know this, Kristen, is that there's a thing called intermittent diet for electronics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Well, I
during
know
the
about intermittent fasting for our bodies, right? But there's something that you can do for on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. So for your electronics, so there are people who just don't, touch, and if you remember, like back in our days, I remember when I was child. I mean, one of the best memories that I have is with absolutely nothing. Like when I grew up in India, I don't know how
Yeah.
much you read up on me, but when I grew up in India, I like my dad was making 50 rupees a month, $3,000 a month, basically, right? And it was like almost like not nothing. It was nothing, right? Essentially. So me and my brother, we grew up and we had no shoes, and we some of the best memories when we were rambunctious on the streets, right? Like we would our swimming pool was a big puddle. There was all kinds of stuff in there you don't want to know, right?
Right.
So in this is India, so this is like yeah, deep kind of water, and
Mm-hmm.
and we are in there was goats in there, and then there was buffaloes in there was cows in there, and then we were in there.
Yeah.
So some of the best memories, though, I can remember, even with my sister, my brother, like it was without any electronics, right? So
Yes.
what do you think what happens to people when they are actually, with a lot of electronics? I mean, in today's world, kids don't have that opportunity, correct?
Unless it is being, I know that there is a lot more of a movement to take phones and put them away during the school day, which I have to say I am in full support of.
Mm-hmm.
And I know certain families who, once their kids come home, will ask them to put the phone in a basket or something, or at least, at the very least, right during a meal. And it's also so difficult because the homework assignments are on the electronics. They may have a group project, and there's this sense that, of course, you're going to Zoom together and get your group project done if you can't be in the same room together. So
Yeah.
it is so prevalent in terms of how we go about living all our lives in all these different ways. I mean, I even laugh because I have, the meditation app. It's on my phone. And in theory, I would be in complete silence away from electronics when I'm meditating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I think it takes a really conscious effort. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can do it, and it takes a really it's not easy because our brains are just getting to this point where they're just craving this little engagement.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you find, Kristen, is that like at least for me, it was when I had nothing, like literally nothing, right? uh Finding alignment was so much more easier than it is today,
Yes.
where correct, there's so many distractions. Even just on the computer screen, there's so many tabs open. Like, okay, which one do I click now? Like,
Oh, I know. I'm looking at my own computer screen right now, just thinking, oh, yeah, some of these tabs have been up there for, gosh, I mean, I should let go of them, right? I do think it is much harder to get in alignment with yourself these days because of the incessant amount of input that is being we're being subjected to. And
yeah.
several years ago, I gave a talk about I think it was, I mean, this was, gosh, at least 5 years ago. And when I did the research, it was saying that we were getting maybe 8,000 advertisements in a single day. And I remember part of the reason why I ended up doing this presentation is I was pumping gas at my local gas station. And, there's this screen that's just, kind of really loud and yelling in my ear as I'm just trying to pump gas. And then later when I was on the bus in another city that I was visiting, they've got the screen up with just kind of this continual loop, or the taxis, and not to mention the stuff that we choose to do when we pick up our own phones. But so there is this some incredible amount of noise. So I think there's that piece of it. So if you are someone who is fortunate enough to have been able to get yourself in alignment, I do feel like there's a kind of you've got to keep exercising that muscle to keep the noise out and keep yourself centered. I think for in my own journey, I don't know that I was in integrity or in alignment until I was much older, because I grew up in a pretty chaotic household. We moved a lot, not far away, but just in our own area. I was kind of the new kid at school for a lot of the years, and I was also just hyper vigilant because of my family system. And so I was spending so much time observing what was going around me that I wasn't really spending that much time getting to know myself.
Mm.
So much of my way of interacting with my peers or with family or with people, like teachers, or was observing them and then kind of showing up the way that I felt like they wanted me to.
Mm.
And that is, I mean, it worked. I was very good at it, but that just meant that I didn't really know who I was for quite a while.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And by the way, I love your background, as I told you earlier, right? I love that
Well,
background. I think it's kind of cool. I love the office. You know, but that being said, okay, so when you talk about the alignment piece, right? So, I know in your journey, in your business consulting. So let's talk about you for a minute. I would love to let our listeners know a little bit about you and who you are and things like that. So let's start I know you grew up in California, that's for sure, and then you also you also like DC. So hey, yay, double
I love
happiness, right?
DC.
Double happiness.
I,
Okay.
I
But
love
there,
DC.
yeah. So if you come down ever in this area, like definitely, look, let's meet up and we'll
We
do
are going to
lunch or
meet
something.
up for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And one thing I'll tell you, like I do this thing called Miracle Meets once a year, and we actually
Mm.
do a havan, like a prayers, and then we go to there's the second largest temple in the world here, not far from here. So we actually go down there, and then we go to
Mm.
a bunch of different places just to have fun. This Miracle
Yeah.
Meets is about it's business slash like it's actually miracle, right? Like we create miracles in that, and I would love to invite you to the next one. Okay.
Oh, I
Oh,
would
I
love
would love
that.
that. Yeah. So, but that being said, I would love to know a little bit more about you, my friend, and what are you doing, and what you're up to, and how are you changing the world, my friend?
Well, what
Well,
I'm
what
up
I'm
to
up to
now,
now,
and I
and
will
I will
say
say
that
that
this
this
is
is
one,
one.
I have
I
been a
have been a
serial
serial
entrepreneur.
entrepreneur.
I
I
have
have
worked
worked
for other
for other
people
people
in
in
medium to
medium to
smaller
smaller
size
size
businesses.
businesses,
And
and
I feel
I
like
feel like
at
at
this
this
moment, I
moment, I
finally have
finally have
landed
landed
on the
on the
thing
thing
that
that
is
is
really the
really the
most
most
true to
true
my
to my
heart.
heart. Okay.
And
And
I mean, that
I mean,
goes
that goes
back to
back to
that thing
that thing
of kind of
of kind of
matching
matching
up
up
with
with
people
people
and
and
kind of
kind of
matching what
matching what
their
their
expectations or
expectations or
needs
needs
were,
were,
which made
which made
me
me
great
great
in my
in my
other
other
careers, whether
careers,
it was
whether it was
business
business
coaching,
coaching,
consulting,
consulting,
design
design
work,
work,
meeting
meeting
clients where
clients where
they
they
wanted to
wanted to
be
be
and help
and help
they
they
get
get
where they
where
wanted
they
to
want to
go.
go.
Um,
Um,
so
so
I
I
had a
had a
degree of
degree of
success, I
success,
would
I would
say,
say,
in my
in my
previous
previous
endeavors.
endeavors.
However,
However,
doing the
doing
work
the
that I
work that
do
I do
now, which
now, which
is
is
focused on
focused on
small
small
group
group
facilitation,
facilitation,
and
and
I
I
talk a
talk
lot
a lot
about
about
Spaghetti on the
spaghetti on the
Wall, which
wall, which
is the
is the
journal that
journal
I
that I
made
made
years
years
ago
ago
that is
that
about
is about
developing a
developing a
habit
habit
of
of
discernment.
discernment.
And what
And
that
what
looks
that looks
like
like
is
is
giving
giving
you
you
very,
very,
very
very
simple
simple
prompts
prompts
to
to
be
be
the
the
non-judgmental
non-judgmental
observer
observer
in your
in
own
your own
life,
life,
and
and
then
then
ask
ask
yourself some
yourself some
questions so that
questions so
you
that
can
you
get
can
to
get
know
to know
yourself a
yourself
little
a
bit
little
better
bit better
as it
as it
relates to
relates to
how
how
you
you
move
move
through the
through the
world. I
world.
mean,
I mean,
and
and
so
so
there's
there's
Spaghetti on the
spaghetti on
Wall,
the
which
wall,
is
which is
this,
this,
so the
so
habit
the
of
habit of
discernment. And
discernment.
then
And
the
then the
other
other
work that
work
I'm
that I'm
doing
doing
right
right
now
now
is
is
an
an
8 week
8 week
workshop. It
workshop. It
also is
also is
a
a
weekend
weekend
intensive
intensive
called
called
Discovering Your
Discovering Your
Spiritual
Spiritual
Autobiography.
Autobiography.
And
And
that
that
is, to
is,
be
to be
clear, a
clear, a
non
non
denominational
denominational
exploration
exploration
of
of
your
your
journey as a
journey as a
spiritual
spiritual
being.
being.
And when I
And when I
say
say
spiritual,
spiritual,
I
I
really
really
think that
think that
I'm
I'm
saying or
saying or
suggesting
suggesting that
that you may
you may
believe in
believe in
something that's
something that's
bigger than
bigger than
yourself.
yourself. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, no, no,
Oh,
no,
no,
go
no, no.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Well,
Well,
and
and
I,
I,
I did
I did
many years
many
ago,
years ago.
I
I
led a
led a
small
small
group where
group
we
where we
did a
did a
spiritual
spiritual
autobiography as
autobiography as
part of
part
this
of this
component.
component,
And it
and it
always stuck
always
with
stuck with
me
me
as
as
this
this
really
really
wonderful
wonderful
way to
way to
think
think
about
about
who
who
you
you
are
are
in
in
relation
relation
to
to
that which
that which
is
is
bigger than
bigger than
yourself.
yourself.
And
And
also the
also the
whole
whole
idea of
idea of
autobiography,
autobiography,
right? So
right?
we're
So we're
thinking
thinking
about those
about those
stories that
stories that
we
we
inherited.
inherited.
We're
We're
thinking
thinking
about the
about the
stories that we
stories that we
tell
tell
ourselves.
ourselves.
And then we
And then
also
we
think
also
about
think
the
about the
stories that
stories that
we
we
choose to
choose to
share.
share.
So,
So,
and
and
it
it
is
is
in the
in the
Discovering Your
Discovering Your
Spiritual
Spiritual
Autobiography
Autobiography
workshop,
workshop,
that's
that's
where we
where we
center
center
ourselves
ourselves
in
in
storytelling
storytelling
and in
and in
sharing. So
sharing. So
it's
it's
specifically
specifically
designed to be
designed
an
to be an
in-person
in-person
small
small
group
group
experience.
experience.
And what I
And what I
love
love
about the
about the
8 week
8 week
version
version
is
is
people
people
really in
really
those
in
eight
those eight
weeks
weeks
are able
are
to
able to
connect
connect
and
and
build
build
authentic
authentic
connection
connection
and
and
let
let
down some
down
of
some of
those
those
layers that
layers that
we
we
essentially
essentially
cloak
cloak
ourselves
ourselves
in,
in,
right,
right,
to
to
make it
make it
through
through
this
this
world.
world. Wow, and so and I love that. So thank you so much for that. And by the way, like
Yeah.
if you those of you are listening and you haven't connected with yourself, I mean, I would highly recommend you talk to Kristen for sure, and see how she can help you. Absolutely, right? I would love that. You know,
Yes.
so that being said, Kristen, you know, so let's say that when you are talking to people and when you're facilitating people in the workshop, so first thing, you know, you're finding themselves in a certain zone, and what are you finding common issues that people are, you know, like really not authentically connecting with themselves with? What would you say, like top one or two or three issues?
Well, I think for a lot of the people that I meet with, particularly in this group setting, there is a feeling that they aren't very clear about who they are or who they want to be. They somehow maybe got lost along the way.
Mm.
And sometimes we get lost for legitimate reasons. I mean, as a mother, and there, was a time when my children were such a primary focus, right? And you as this individual, you can easily get set aside in that. And that's, I, I love being a parent, and I'm not going to second guess myself on that. We can also get lost in we can lose ourselves, rather, or that connection with ourselves, when we are in pursuit of things that are defined for us by others, right? And I think about, we were talking about success, and we were mentioning success, and I think that language is so powerful, because there are these words like success, where there will be amongst your peer group, or amongst where you live, there's going to be kind of a accepted definition of what that is. However, that's a big word, and that's worth getting curious with yourself about, what does success look like for me? And
Mm.
success in your 20s maybe is going to look very different than in your 30s. Like, you got to keep asking yourself, stay in conversation with yourself,
Yeah.
and keep asking yourself, like, is am I just assuming what kind of everyone else is doing for my own life? And I think that really can also be a real cause of disconnect,
I
because
see.
life is not a one size fits all.
No, it's not. It's not. It never is, right? So because, you know, so I find that, so basically what I find, and I'm sure you found this, and what you're saying here is that those of you are listening, right? Because sometimes we chase success and we try to mirror other people, meaning like we have heard, you know, like, you know, especially in the business world, we have heard hacks, you know, like do the hack, you know, like hack the funnel, right? You know, so go into opt into somebody's funnel, and then you got to hack that. And you know what I find that is so inauthentic. It is, I mean, it's not bad idea, I would say it's a good idea, but it's so inauthentic because you can never make it lasting success, right? That's what you're saying here.
Right,
Am I correct?
right. I mean, building both sustainable success, meaning that you are able to stay as an active participant and not get burned out or overwhelmed, right? And then also building long lasting
Yeah.
success,
Yeah.
and the success that you are really naming for yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am, I mean, to go back to kind of this idea of hacks and looking at other people, we learn so much from others, right? I mean, that is one of the best ways to learn, right? And that's why I believe so much in storytelling. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, I'm in the business of storytelling, whether it's my own story that I'm willing to share, or bringing people together so that they can learn from each other. And we just want to be sure that we're not we're actually learning from the other story rather than assuming it as the answer for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with you on that, right? So the first thing, as we are talking about this with three simple steps,
Yeah.
through success. What, in terms of entrepreneurs, business owners, individuals, when they are looking for success, authenticity is such an important component, specifically what I find for sustainability. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes. And I mean, most entrepreneurs are problem solvers,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, they've seen a gap in a service or a product, or they have figured out maybe a different way to do something. And so they're solving a problem. And I love that about entrepreneurs, right? I mean, that's how my own entrepreneurial adventure started, is people asking me for something that they thought that I had, landscape design talent, that they didn't have. However, what I will say is that I I mean, I'll tell you a funny story with my landscape design business. So I mentioned that my neighbors were asking me because they saw my yard, and they're like, "Oh, this is beautiful. Can you come over and help me with my yard?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? Like, it'll be fun." And I finally, was doing that for friends, and then I'd get a fruit basket as a thank you, or a gift certificate or something. And then at a certain point, I was like, well, gosh, I guess I'll start a business around this. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I thought, oh, I'll figure it out. And so I would do the design for a client. And then the next thing I knew, they were looking at me like, well, can you be the one who puts it, can you make this happen? Can you do the construction, the installation? And I was like, well, sure. I know, I can do that. I can figure that out. And in the process, you also have to do all the procurement, right? You've got to get all the stuff that you're going to either plant, or you're building pathways or whatever. And so I do that. And then, then once it was all in, it would be, they'd come to me and they'd say, well, are you available to maintain it? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I know how to take care of these things. And so, yeah. But so, I mean, that was not a sustainable business model. I mean, it could have been if I actually had figured out that that's what I was looking to do, right? Is kind of a full service landscaping business. But it wasn't. And I really, it took me some hard knocks to figure out, okay, slow down. If you in fact are going to continue with this business, what are the pieces that are actually meaningful to you, right? So that there's this whole suite of services that you're being asked to do, but is your heart really in the maintenance piece, or is it really in the this? And so I think, because I think that's kind of the double-edged sword also of that entrepreneurial spirit, is just because you get asked, or just because you see a need, and you can do it, doesn't necessarily make it a good idea for your business.
It doesn't make it fulfilling, that's for sure, right? So
No,
because
it doesn't make you fulfilling, and you end up being, yeah, you get kind of away from the thing that you really excel at.
right, yeah, exactly. And what I find, and I'm sure you're finding this as well, is time and again entrepreneurs, like in your case, it was so beautiful to just be, and then people just came to you, and then you didn't realize that in the depth of the work, because at first it's like, okay, just asking for a small favor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem, you can do it. And then there's a little bit more, and there's a little bit more, and now it's like you own it, right? So I think one of the things, what in this, like as you're talking about it, we have to be careful of not owning your job, not owning. I mean, yes, it was paying you good, which is nice, right? um
Oh my gosh, it wasn't. I, at a certain
it
point,
wasn't.
I was, well, no, not till I figured out kind of, I reined it back in because I was busier than I knew what to do with myself. I mean, every weekend I was working, and I wasn't making any money. I was
Yeah.
probably, at the point that I was the busiest, I was probably the brokest.
Really? Wow. So, and many entrepreneurs find themselves that way, correct? Like they find that,
Yes.
their heart, and they say, "Oh my God, I love this, and I'm so excited," and they end up doing it, without giving it a thought as to whether that's gonna actually pan out or not pan out, or more importantly, whether they will like it for sustainable amount of time.
Yeah.
For profitability is one thing. You have to, I mean, in my opinion, you have to be profitable in business. I mean,
Oh,
at the end of the day, that's why you're running a business, right?
yeah.
You have just those of you who are listening. I want to let you know, if you guys are like running a business or thinking about running a business, or somebody who is running a business. I want you to know, right? Just like you take care of the family with money, right? Business also needs to be taken care of with an important ingredient called money. And I
Yep.
believe that a lot of times entrepreneurs, especially holistic entrepreneurs or spiritual entrepreneurs, we tend to run away from that. And I think that has to do with the internal dialogue, and not just holistic, but any entrepreneur or business owner. Many of them run away, from that, because there's an internal dialogue, and the dialogue usually says, "I'm not good enough." Would you say?
Well, I think sometimes it is that I love what you're saying because it is, yeah, it does take money, right? You get this, especially if you're thinking about, if it's a service, for instance, or even a product, right?
Yeah.
That you've created, you are bringing this to the world, and the way that this works is that there's an exchange, and our world is set up that that exchange is currency, you
Yes.
know
Yes.
and so you need to have that. And I think the pricing, the as you mentioned, that kind of fear of, well, number one, I think there's a fear of the numbers in general, right?
Yeah.
And that is, so that's another thing of just getting comfortable with your profit and loss sheet and knowing what your financials are, and getting, I mean, I like, make best friends with your numbers. And a lot of times I feel like entrepreneurs don't want to take that time. And it doesn't mean that you have to become an expert at that. Sometimes making best friends with your numbers means making best friends with someone that you hire to help you get some clarity around your
Yeah.
numbers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the actual pricing and what happens with the mentality, and I know I did this too, is there's part of it is you might be doing something that is falls into a realm where it's like kind of feels vague around, so you feel uncomfortable maybe. And I mean, like, design work is a great, because it is a creative endeavor, right? And so how do you monetize creativity? And actually, as you get better as a designer, in theory, your designs should be taking you less time, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
building this institutional knowledge. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many people in that field, for example, are tied to a time for dollars mentality, right? And that's what their pricing structure is. So as they get better, they end up not making as much money because it takes them less time. But that's insane, because the reason why they can do it more quickly is because they've gained all this experience and
Absolutely.
expertise. So
Absolutely.
there's that piece around the pricing. And then the other thing that I think really comes into play is sometimes, because it's like the water that we swim in, right? There's a joke that, the two little baby young fish are swimming along, and the older fish says, "Oh, hey, how's the water?" And the little fish are like, "What?" You know, because you're so in it. So it's hard also when you are really talented at something and you're so in it, you can have a, a kind of this view or impression like, oh gosh, this isn't really that valuable because it's so easy, or it's I've always been able to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, 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 this is actually a gift that you have that other people don't.
No, no. And I also think that it's important to make like understand for yourself whether that gift is just for you so you can cherish it for you and your
Right.
family, or
Yeah.
is it really there to serve the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at times, like you said earlier, where you did all these things, and you're doing okay, like but it wasn't the greatest, but it was okay, right?
Yeah.
But at some
Oh, I
point,
met a bunch of interesting people. I gained a bunch of, interesting experiences. So I would never look back on it and say I regret that.
no, no, and if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to talk about it today. So
I know.
right. So that being said, but I also think that it's important to find your zen, your internal
Yes.
being, your internal like self, where you tick, you truly tick. Like you don't have to get up in the morning and says, okay, I'm gonna be motivated today, and listen to a whole bunch of
Right.
motivational music or whatever, but you can actually be in the meditation, or in a total like alignment, right? Would you agree with that,
Yeah.
or am I wrong here?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I would, and that's this place that I'm at today, which is, I am so excited each day to get up and create and work on my projects and think, and reach out to potential places to have workshops and retreats, and then when I get to meet and interact with the people who are showing up for these, it is such a gift, and it is, I walk away feeling lighter and just, yeah. I mean, it is, there's such a deep gratitude I have for the ease and joy that is associated with what I do right now. And I also feel like there is a real, I'm need for this. I feel like I'm really needing, it's not as easy to describe as, walking by someone who has a yard that's a mess, or even, with my business coaching, interacting with someone who has a business that they're struggling with. But the small group facilitation at this moment is, what I have noticed is this real hunger for connection and amongst people, and in a way that, I don't know, maybe we just haven't figured out it, or we forgot, I mean, how to do that. And, and I, we're so siloed, right, in our lives, whether it's that we don't go to the grocery store because we can order our groceries to be delivered, right? Or we don't go, we there's there's very few moments of spontaneity,
Yes.
spontaneous interaction that is afforded to us. And I think that's kind of that starting point. And I love Raj Chetty's work around the Atlas of Opportunity. And he talks about economic mobility and is the American dream achievable? And one of the big things that makes economic mobility possible is people interacting and developing relationships kind of outside of their social class or strata. And the places that used to happen most commonly were public school and faith based services.
Yeah.
And we know that for the most part, church attendance is down. And at least in my neck of the woods, there's a predominance of independent schools. And so again, there's that self-selection and that siloing that's happening. So I feel it's important at this moment and obviously people are self-selecting to be in my group, but at least it's a little step towards a way of engaging with someone that you didn't necessarily know before, or at least maybe you didn't know them in that in a deeper way.
Yeah. So in your group, like, do you go into, people being open, and really sharing from within, right? Because that's also a crucial skill, I think so.
We do. I mean, and we have fun. It kind of sounds serious, to connect on a more authentic level. But actually, there's so much laughter and joy that happens when you're connecting too, because at that level, because life is funny.
Yes, it is
You know,
funny.
when you're sharing stories, I mean, there's just funny stuff that happens. It may not have felt that funny in the moment, but sometimes in the reflection, it feels a little funnier.
Mhm.
But we do end up talking about at a deeper level and connecting and sharing. And one of the things I will say about my groups is I'm not doing therapy, and I really like to start each group by naming that we're here to share. We're not necessarily here to fix each other. And because you can be in a group and you can hear something from another participant that really can kind of activate you, right? And so rather than having it be where people are kind of jumping in and wanting to make this situation better for the other person, or I I really emphasize that we're kind of just here to hold space with each other to share. And when you kind of are feeling yourself like, oof, I wanted to jump in and fix that, that is actually really good information for yourself, right? Like, what is that thing that
Yeah.
you need to get curious about?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, so what happens is we remember a lot of things in our life that are in terms of bad memories. And I teach this thing, and I love this because the conversation that we are having, because most people never open up, right? Some people are just so close minded, or many people I know that are so close minded, or they're so closed in general, because we've been told, that, oh my god, everything is being stolen, and oh my god, things are just, ending, right? And it's nothing but a whole bunch of oh my god, but the reality,
Right.
the reality of the matter is that it's not, like, it's not as bad as you think it is. right? You just have to
Mm.
share it, and the more you are open, you figure out, oh wow, like that wasn't actually bad. Do you find that quite a bit in your groups? People get surprised.
Well, I am surprised at, well, number one, I'm always surprised at the kindness of people,
Mm,
right? I mean, I just think that there is so much more kindness, and we
yeah.
don't hear enough about kind of just the little kindnesses that are out in everyday life.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. And the thing that I've noticed that that really touches my heart in my groups is I mentioned that people are hungry to share their stories. And I will say that I'm really struck by the patience and the care that people have in terms of their listening.
Mm,
That people are, in my experience, especially recently with these groups, has been a real generosity in listening.
wow.
And I mean, you think about, wow, that's like, what a gift to give someone else to just really, really listen.
I love that. I love that. And you know, and you're right, because we are so used to in today's society, since children are born, they're being separated, right? Separated from the parents, sleep in the other room, and then as children grow up, I mean, sometimes they cry and they want to go back to mom and dad, and their mom and dad says no, and then there's really nobody listening from the beginning. One
Right.
of one of my gurus said that there was a question being asked to say, hey, nowadays older parents are not being taken care of, and how do we solve the problem? And the Pope, he basically said that, hey, uh he said the one of the best ways to solve the problem is, first of all, make sure that your children are not separated from since they were little, right? Give them some time, give them nurturing, give them, let them sleep in your room. It's okay if they sleep in your room. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. Cuddle with them or have fun with them. Because they're there for short amount of time. I mean,
I
I think that
know.
most of us don't realize that. I mean, our daughter is 25 now, and she's about to become a doctor. And
Oh, congratulations.
thank you, thank you. So so as I think about that back, right, as you were talking about that, that kind of took me back and said, you know that is so true, that people just don't listen. My daughter will often call me, like she's going through her third year right now,
Hmm.
and she has an exam coming up literally this coming weekend. So she calls us off often just to get some, like encouragement, some help, or whatever else that she
Yeah.
wants to run by us, so to speak, right? And then I'll just, my wife loves interacting with her, and I love interacting with her. So and she will be like saying, so dad, let me show you this and let me show you that, and then I'm just listening. And then anytime you are listening to somebody, you're really paying attention to them, and you're really helping them out, because a lot of times, we are a mirror, right? So when we
Right.
see something or when we say something, we are actually saying it in reflection of, right? So we're trying to change ourselves. And I think that's so beautiful that you do that at your workshops, honestly.
Well, and circling back to where one of the places where we started with this attention economy, right?
Yeah.
And the, my mom has an Apple phone that's going off in the midst of this, and and then people's need to be looking at their phones during, you'll be in the middle of the conversation with someone and someone will pick up their phone. I'm like thinking to myself, really? But it's so commonplace. Or I saw, I didn't read the article yet, but it was talking about how prevalent wearing earbuds is in, like, just everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And kind of what that does too, right? Again, talking about siloing yourself, or creating that space from others. I mean, you got earphones in. So you're basically saying, I'm busy. I don't want to be interacting with you.
And you know what happens is that when you have that, you're not only shutting yourself down, but you're also shutting down the good vibrations, the vibes that are coming to you, or
Yeah.
the openness that you should be open to the world, to be ready for the world to go make a difference, right? So I think it's such a crucial thing. You know, my friend, I really am having blast in this conversation with you. I tell you, like I really am having a good time. So I would say that what are some of the takeaways you would recommend for people, and if they want to get first of all, let's go to the takeaway real quick.
Yeah, the takeaway is, there's nothing new under the sun. I don't feel like I'm really saying anything that's maybe new or different. All I know is that sometimes you hear something at the right time and it really lands,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So the beauty of a conversation like this is someone is listening to it right now or comes to it a little bit later, and they hear us talking and they have found themselves perhaps feeling completely overwhelmed or disengaged or just burned out. And so what I would say is, I love this saying, uh, go slow to move fast.
yeah. I
Go
love
slow
that.
to move fast, right? And meaning, give yourself a minute to get bored, right?
Yeah,
Turn
yeah,
off everything. It can be for 5 minutes, and that
yes,
can make a big difference. I mean, 5 minutes without your devices is going to feel like forever. But you may have to start with 1 minute and then build to five.
yeah,
But allow yourself to just stop the noise, breathe, right? Get in that. One of the best ways, right, to get ourselves connected with ourselves is the breathing, our breath. So if nothing else, just focus on your breathing.
yeah,
And as you, and I would say, kind of challenge yourself to increase by a minute a day, and allow for your mind to wander.
yeah,
Just see where your thoughts go. And the other thing I do, I know everyone's going to roll their eyes, but I think that journaling is a
mm,
great way to get to know yourself. And you might want to do it kind of the less structured way, where you're just setting aside some time and you're writing and then you let it go. You may want to check out Spaghetti on the Wall and see like a prompted journaling. But again, that curiosity around yourself, and give yourself permission to to be, I don't know, just be okay with the information that you get. Like, don't judge what you're kind of learning about yourself.
right, yeah. Don't judge. You're right, 100% right, right. So when it comes to the judgment is concerned, we judge ourselves quite a bit, right?
Um,
We we judge ourselves.
oh, it's just this constant thing going on, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we would never talk to a friend the way we talk to ourselves, I feel
Yeah,
like.
we would never talk to a friend. Yeah, yeah.
No, we would be so much more thoughtful, or, even if we got frustrated with our friend, we wouldn't talk to a friend like that. And I
No.
just like to remind people, like, there's going to be plenty of people out in the world who are willing to criticize you or second guess you or, give you a hard time. Um, like, don't have yourself be the primary, the place where that's happening 24/7. Be kind to yourself. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you absolve yourself of accountability and showing up, but it does allow yourself to make mistakes
Yeah.
and to pay attention and learn from your mistakes.
Absolutely. And you know, it's a evolution, right? And
Yeah.
you're literally stopping your evolution when you're not doing that, basically.
Oh my gosh. It's, I mean, I remember when I first read Mindset by Carol Dweck, and the whole idea of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And, you know, the beauty of the growth mindset of being willing to look at your mistakes and learn from those, and we all know, I mean, we can think about that those are sometimes our best lessons, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, people say like you're positive too much or whatever. There's no such thing, right? Because
Oh,
you are actually, what you're doing is you're increasing your frequency. When you raise your frequency, you know, the dynamics internally changes, and you start to accomplish more things like you should. You know, in my at least
yeah.
that's what I've seen so far. You know, so I
Yeah,
love this. Go ahead,
I
go
do
ahead.
too. Oh, well, I
Yeah.
just was going to say we are all unique individuals for a
Yes.
reason, and
Yes.
we each have a wonderful gift to share with others. And if
Yes.
we are not living fully into that, that's it. Think of how much the world is missing out on getting to know, you know, who each of us are in their most full way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I love this, you know, and I love the small. So, how intimate is your typical your gatherings and things like that?
They are mostly about anywhere from 8 to 12 people.
Okay.
It can be even smaller, but it's really great at least to have 4 participants, and then after 12, there are ways that I am able to facilitate larger groups, and it makes for a slightly different experience, but we do a lot of what we do with larger groups is break them into smaller groups, and so kind
Sure.
of create pods in there. But yeah, that the sweet spot is kind of that 8 to 12.
I love that. I love that, my friend. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so
Thank
glad you
you.
came today. I really am so happy. And thank you so much for coming. I would love to let people know how they can get in touch with you, you know, as they are interested in what you're doing and how you can help them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have a website. It's called kristenswan.com. And if you're interested in the journal, that is available for purchase on the website. There's also information about, and I'm in the process of updating the event page so that you can take a look and see if there are discovering your spiritual autobiography courses near you, workshops. And I also have a few other things in the mix, so stay tuned.
I
But
love
it's
that.
reach out to me. If you have a group of people that you want to do a group with, I would love to talk to you about it.
Absolutely love that, Christian. Thank you so much for that. And those of you who are here, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I would love to invite you to go visit Christian's website, christianswan.com, and you know you can find out all the information on there, my friend. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Christian, for being here. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you,
Love your
Ash.
thoughts. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're like you're speaking my language, and I love what you're saying, and you're speaking the language of the people who are listening. So I want to say thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you.
Well, I really appreciate what you bring to this space, and you are a really generous, and you bring so much. You're so generous to your guests, and you bring so much heart to this each time. So thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. Thank you so much, my friend. Okay, thank you. All
Okay,
right.
be well.
Yeah, be back. Give me 1 second. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, stay right here. Don't leave. All right, guys. So I want to say thank you so much, guys, for being here. I really appreciate you. I love you guys very, very much. And as we are talking about a subject matter, and as we are really, getting into the flow here, and we are looking to really improve ourselves. I thought I do something totally different than I normally end up doing. Okay, and so I figured it will be kind of cool to show you, and take it from there. Okay, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna do something for us here today, and I think it's gonna be kind of cool, honestly, right? So I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna bring Kristen back. Okay,
Oh,
and
thank
then
you.
yeah, you're so welcome, my friend. And we're gonna do something really cool, which we don't normally end up doing. And I want to say thank you so much for joining Financial Chakras podcast today. I so appreciate you guys. And abundance through alignment, it truly is a real deal, my friends. I
Yes.
have and I'm seeing Christian is a living example of that, and there are so many other people who are coming on this podcast to be that example. And I want to just do a quick prayer with you guys. And just today is a little bit different than what I would normally do, so I just want to say thank you so much. Okay, here we go. Let's get started with the small prayer real quick. Okay, let's do that, Kristen.
Okay.
Okay. Take a deep breath.
Mm.
As you're doing this manifestation, an energy appears in front of you. Humbled by the presence of this energy, you bow down to his feet and you take the blessings. Thank you so much, dear universe, for this amazing experience today. I so appreciate you and I love you very much. Dear universe, thank you so much for coming into lives of everyone, and thank you so much for providing them with health, wealth, and happiness. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take a deep breath, release. Thank you so much, dear universe. As I bow down to your feet one more time and I take the blessings, I just want to say thank you. Take a deep breath and slowly rub your hands together and take the blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome to. Thank you so much for listening to Financial Chakras Podcast, Abundance Through Alignment. And I celebrate you guys. I love you guys very much. And Kristen, my friend, I love you, my friend, as
Mm.
well. And I
Thank
can't
you so
wait to see
much.
you in DC. Can't wait. Thank
I
you.
know.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second.